Hannah Cole grabbed my wrist so suddenly that the plastic cup in my hand nearly hit the floor. "Come with me," she said. We were standing in the middle of our neighborhood summer party, surrounded by string lights, folding tables, grilled corn, children chasing each other through sprinklers, and half the people on our street pretending not to watch us. Hannah lived in the pale yellow house next to mine. For 9 months, she had been the person who watered my porch plants when I forgot, returned my packages when delivery drivers mixed up our addresses, and somehow knew when I needed coffee without asking. She had never grabbed me before. Before I could ask what was wrong, she pulled me through the back door of the Hendersons' house, down a short hallway, and into a small bathroom near the laundry room. She closed the door, turned the lock, and leaned against it, breathing fast. My heart started pounding for reasons I could not name. "Hannah, what happened?" She stepped closer and lowered her voice until I almost had to lean toward her. "Daniel," she whispered, "do not sign anything Nick gives you tonight. He's been taking money from your company for almost a year." For a second, I thought I had misunderstood her. Then she said the sentence that changed everything. "I can prove it. If stories about ordinary people finding out the truth at exactly the wrong moment interest you, stay with me, because what happened after that locked bathroom door forced me to question my best friend, my future, and the woman living 15 feet from my kitchen window. My name is Daniel Mercer. I was 30 years old that summer, living in a small 2-story house in Raleigh, North Carolina, and trying to keep a residential renovation company alive with more determination than money. I had started Mercer & Lane Renovations with my childhood friend, Nick Lane, 4 years earlier. I handled design, clients, and job sites. Nick handled contracts, suppliers, payroll, and most of the financial side. I trusted him because I had known him since we were 13. After my engagement ended 2 years earlier, work became the place I hid from everything else. I told myself I was rebuilding. In reality, I was exhausted, ashamed of how close the company was to failing, and too proud to admit I had no idea why. Hannah was 26, exactly 4 years younger than me. She worked as a forensic accountant for a regional insurance company downtown. She had moved into the house next door the previous fall after ending an engagement of her own. She was calm in a way I had never learned to be. Not quiet, exactly. She laughed easily, argued when she disagreed, and had a habit of tapping a pencil against her thumb while thinking. But she never seemed impressed by noise, status, or panic. That night in the bathroom, I stared at her as if she had spoken another language. "Nick," I said. "My Nick?" Her expression tightened. "Yes. You're saying he stole from me?" "I'm saying money left accounts you told me were nearly empty, and it went places that don't match the expenses you described. I'm saying invoices were paid twice. I'm saying one supplier on your books does not appear to exist at the address listed. And I'm saying Nick asked you to sign a sale agreement tonight because he knows you're tired enough to do it without reading everything." The room suddenly felt too small. 3 weeks earlier, I had shown Hannah a stack of company statements at my kitchen table. I had not meant to ask for help. She had come over because the storm had knocked a branch through part of my back fence, and I had promised to look at a leak under her porch in exchange for her helping me drag the branch away. We ended up eating takeout at midnight, and I made some bitter joke about being able to fix everyone else's houses, but not my own business. She had looked at the papers near my elbow and said, "Do you want sympathy or do you want me to tell you why that number looks wrong?" I should have known then that she would not let it go. Now I rubbed both hands over my face. "You had no right to investigate my business, I know." The immediate answer surprised me. She continued, "You gave me 6 months of bank statements, your receivables report, and your vendor list. You asked me to tell you why you were profitable on paper and broke in real life. I did what you asked. I just found more than either of us expected. I asked you to look for mistakes. I did. Nick is not a mistake." "No, she said softly. He's a person you love like family. That's why I waited until I was sure. Outside the bathroom, someone laughed loudly in the hallway. Music from the backyard thumped through the wall. I could smell smoke from the grill on my shirt. I wanted the door open. I wanted the last 60 seconds erased. You said you can prove it! Hannah reached into the pocket of her summer dress and pulled out her phone. She opened a folder of screenshots. I made copies only of what you gave me, she said. I didn't access anything without permission. Look at this transfer. She showed me a payment from our operating account to a company called Birch Supply Consulting. $18,600. I know Birch, I said quickly. Nick said they handled specialty millwork. Then why is their mailing address a private mailbox inside a shipping store? My throat went dry. She swiped again. Here's another payment. $12,000 2 months later. Here's a third. $7,000. The account receiving those payments is tied to an LLC registered last year. She stopped. Registered to whom? I asked. Her eyes held mine. Nick's sister. I actually laughed once, but there was nothing funny in it. That doesn't mean anything. His sister does bookkeeping. She lives in Arizona and works for a dental office. My stomach dropped. Hannah lowered the phone. There's more, but you don't need all of it right now. You need to stop him from getting your signature. That was when I remembered why Nick had insisted I come to the party, even though I had spent the entire afternoon repairing a client's warped deck boards in 95-degree heat. He said he had good news. An investor was willing to buy our company's debt, take over several contracts, and keep both of us on salary. Nick called it a rescue. He told me he would bring the paperwork, and we could sign it after a beer because the buyer wanted an answer before Monday. At the time, I had felt relief. Now relief turned into nausea. What exactly is in the agreement? Hannah asked. I haven't read it. Her eyes closed for half a second. I know how that sounds, I said. It sounds like a tired man trusting his oldest friend. The gentleness in her voice made me angrier than judgment would have. I pointed toward the door. He's out there. Yes. I was going to sign away half my company in front of him. Yes. And you're asking me to walk back outside and pretend everything is normal? For 10 minutes. Why? Because if he knows you're suspicious, he can destroy records, move money, or change his story. I need you to take the papers. Say you'll review them tomorrow and leave. We? I asked. She hesitated. Unless you want to do this alone? That should have been an easy question. I had spent most of the previous 2 years insisting I could do everything alone. Instead, I heard myself say, "No, I don't." Something shifted in her face. Not triumph. Relief. She unlocked the door. Before she opened it, she looked back at me. One more thing. What? Whatever happens when we walk out there, don't confront him tonight. I gave her a hard look. You really think I can smile at him? No, she said. I think you can survive 10 minutes. That was Hannah. She never asked me to be invincible. She asked me to do the next thing. We stepped into the hallway separately, me first, Hannah 30 seconds later. The party had not changed. That was the strangest part. The Hendersons' teenage son was carrying a tray of lemonade. Someone had started a cornhole game. A little girl in a wet swimsuit was eating watermelon on the porch steps. The world had the nerve to look ordinary. Nick stood near the far end of the patio, waving when he saw me. He was 31, broad-shouldered, loud, and familiar enough that I knew the exact shape of his smile from across a yard. He had been beside me when my mother died. I had been best man at his wedding. When my fiancée, Lauren, left, Nick slept on my couch for 3 nights because he did not trust me to be alone. That was the man Hannah was accusing. "Where'd you disappear to?" Nick asked when I reached him. "Bathroom." He glanced past me toward the house, then grinned. With the neighbor, normally I would have rolled my eyes. That night, the joke felt like a hand pressing on a bruise. "Hannah needed help with something," I said. "Sure she did." He nudged my shoulder. "Anyway, I brought the documents." He pulled a thick envelope from under a folded jacket on the chair beside him. My pulse kicked harder. "Buyer wants signatures tonight," he said. "Just on the preliminary transfer. We can have the lawyers clean up the details next week." The sentence would have sounded normal 3 hours earlier. Now every word felt sharpened. I took the envelope. "I'm reading it first." Nick blinked. "What? I'm not signing a company transfer after 2 beers at a block party." His smile stayed in place, but his eyes changed. "Since when are you cautious?" "Since right now." For a second, neither of us moved. Then he laughed. "Fine. Read it. But don't take all weekend. We need this, Danny." He had called me Danny since 8th grade. I almost hated him for using it. I slid the envelope under my arm and forced myself to stay another 6 minutes. I know because I watched the second hand on the cheap patio clock, like a prisoner watching a guard. Then I told people I had an early job site, thanked the Hendersons, and walked home. Hannah followed 5 minutes later. She did not knock on my front door. She crossed the strip of grass between our driveways and found me sitting on the steps behind my house in the dark. The party music still floated over the fence. She sat 1 step below me without asking. For a while, we said nothing. Then I handed her the envelope. "Tell me how bad it is." She looked at me. "Do you want me to read it as your neighbor or as an accountant? What's the difference? As your neighbor, I'll make coffee first." Despite everything, I almost smiled. "As an accountant? I'll tell you not to sign before page 3. That was the beginning of the longest night of my life. We moved to my kitchen because the back steps were too exposed, and because Hannah was right about the coffee. My house looked worse at 1 in the morning than it did during the day. Cabinet door hanging crooked. Paint samples taped to the wall for a renovation I never started. A stack of estimates near the microwave. I had spent years telling clients that unfinished rooms created stress while living inside one. Hannah spread Nick's papers across my table. She read slowly, twice in some places. I watched her pencil move through the margins. "What?" I asked every time she stopped. "Let me finish. You keep making that face. This is my reading face. That is not your reading face. That is your somebody is lying face." She looked up. "You know my face is now?" I stopped. It was a strange thing to notice in the middle of disaster. But yes, I knew the tiny crease between her eyebrows when she was irritated. I knew the half-smile she used when she was pretending not to laugh. I knew that when she was worried, she tucked loose hair behind her left ear, even when it was already tucked there. Apparently, I had been paying attention. She looked back at the papers. "The buyer isn't buying your debt," she said. "They're buying your client contracts, your equipment, your brand name, and the right to collect outstanding receivables. What do we get? You personally get almost nothing." I leaned forward. "That can't be right." Page 7. After liabilities and fees, your share is listed as $1. $1? It's symbolic consideration. Legal language. And Nick? He has a separate consulting agreement referenced here but not attached. I felt cold despite the summer heat pushing against the windows. So he gets paid. It looks that way. I walked to the sink and gripped the counter. For 4 years, I had worked 6 days a week. I had missed holidays, strained my back carrying cabinets, answered client calls from hospital hallways when my mother was dying, and put almost every dollar I had into that company. 1 signature, and I would leave with $1. Hannah did not tell me to calm down. She let me be angry. That mattered more than I realized at the time. "What do I do tomorrow?" I asked. "First, call a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. You can't afford not to have one." She pulled out her phone. "My company uses a small business attorney for some outside matters. I can give you his office number. I can't promise he'll take your case, but he'll at least tell you what needs to be preserved." Preserved? Emails, contracts, bank records, accounting files. Anything that shows where the money went. I nodded, then shook my head. "I don't understand how I missed this." Hannah put down her pencil. "Because you were on job sites while he handled the books. That's not an excuse." "No, it's an explanation. I signed the checks." "Some of them. I defended him every time a supplier complained. You trusted your partner? I trusted my friend?" That last word broke something in my voice. Hannah stood. She did not hug me. She knew me well enough not to make comfort into a performance. Instead, she filled a glass with water and set it near my hand. "You do not have to decide what Nick means to you tonight," she said. "Tonight, you only need to decide what you're going to protect." I looked around the kitchen. "My employees," I said. "Their paychecks, the clients whose houses are open, the company, if there's anything left." "And yourself?" I gave her a tired look. She held it. Finally, I said, "Fine. Myself, too." "Good." At 3 a.m, she went home. Before leaving, she wrote 3 things on the back of an old hardware store receipt. "Call attorney. Backup records. Do not warn Nick." I kept that receipt for years. The next morning, I called the attorney Hannah recommended. His name was Malcolm Reed, and he sounded like a man who had been disappointed by human behavior for so long that nothing surprised him anymore. He asked me 12 questions in 10 minutes. Then he said, "Do not confront your partner. Do not sign anything. Preserve every record you legally have access to. And do not move money unless we discuss it first." I asked how bad he thought it was. "I don't guess before documents," he said. "That's how people get stupid." I liked him immediately. By Monday, Malcolm had agreed to represent me at a reduced initial rate with a payment plan. Hannah helped me organize the records I already possessed. She was careful about boundaries. She would point at a number and ask me what it represented. If I did not know, she marked it. If a document was outside what I had given her, she told me not to send it until Malcolm approved. The more we looked, the worse it became. Fake vendor payments were only part of it. Nick had been delaying payroll tax deposits, paying them just late enough to trigger penalties, but not late enough to get my attention. He had opened a company credit line I knew existed, but had understated its balance by nearly $60,000. Several client deposits had been shifted between jobs to cover shortages, creating a hole that grew every month. And there were personal expenses: a weekend at a resort, payments on a boat, restaurant bills in cities where we had no projects, a jewelry store charge for $4,800. I stared at that one for a long time. Nick's wife, Abby, had worn a new diamond bracelet at Easter. I closed the laptop. Hannah sat across from me at her dining table. We had migrated to her house because mine started to feel contaminated by the paperwork. "I was at their wedding," I said. "I know." "I gave a speech." "I know." "I told Abby she married the most loyal man I knew." Hannah's face softened. "Daniel, I vouched for him to everyone. Clients, workers, my mother. You are not responsible for what he chose to do with your trust. But I gave him access. That is not the same thing." I looked at her. "You always have an answer." "No. I have a professional opinion about financial records and a personal opinion about blaming yourself for someone else's decisions." "Which one is this?" "Personal." I sat back. Something had changed between us after the party. We were still neighbors. She still left for work in the morning carrying a canvas tote and a travel mug. I still waved from my driveway if I was loading tools. But now there was a private thread connecting our days. She texted at lunch. "Did you eat something that came from a plant or an animal today?" I answered. "Coffee came from a plant." She replied, "I regret helping you. At night, we reviewed documents until our eyes hurt. Sometimes we talked about everything except Nick. I learned Hannah had been engaged to a man named Peter, who treated every disagreement like a debate he needed to win. She ended it at 6 weeks before their wedding after realizing she was apologizing for things she did not believe were wrong. "He wasn't cruel," she told me one night as we sat on her porch with 2 bowls of ice cream melting faster than we could eat them. That almost made it harder. Everyone expected me to need a dramatic reason. He didn't hit me. He didn't cheat. He just slowly convinced me that peace meant agreeing with him. What finally did it? He accepted a job in Boston and told everyone I was moving before he asked me. I stared at her. She shrugged. Apparently my opinion was a scheduling detail. "You would hate being married to me." "Why? I schedule nothing." She laughed, and the sound loosened something inside me. Then she asked about Lauren, my former fiancé. I looked out at the street. She said I loved emergencies more than I loved her. Was she right? The question stung because Hannah did not ask it cruelly. Sometimes, I admitted. There was always a job that needed me, a client problem, a supplier, Nick calling. I thought being needed meant I was doing something important. And after she left, I worked more, efficient. I laughed despite myself. "I told you, you always have an answer." No. That was sarcasm. By the second week, Malcolm had enough evidence to request emergency access controls through the bank and demand full company records from Nick. We scheduled a formal meeting at Malcolm's office for Thursday afternoon. Nick called me Wednesday night. I almost did not answer. Malcolm had told me not to discuss the investigation, but ignoring Nick would be its own message. "Hey," I said. "Danny, what the hell is going on?" His voice was sharper than usual. "What do you mean?" "The bank called about changing authorization. Our bookkeeper says some lawyer asked for copies of records. Are you trying to push me out?" I gripped the phone. Across Hannah's living room, she looked up from her laptop. I put the call on speaker only after texting Malcolm for permission and receiving a single reply. "Listen. Do not accuse." "I'm reviewing the company's finances," I said. "Why?" "Because I should have done it a long time ago." Silence. Then Nick laughed. "This is Hannah, isn't it?" My eyes snapped toward her. "What?" "Your accountant neighbor. She gets in your head for one night and suddenly you're treating me like a criminal?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to. Daniel, we have been doing this together for 4 years. She's been living next door for what, 9 months? You're really choosing her over me?" The question landed exactly where he intended. Hannah's expression did not change, but she looked away. "This isn't about choosing people," I said. "It sure looks like it. Then bring every record to the meeting tomorrow." Another silence. "You're making a mistake," Nick said. "Maybe. Bring the records." He hung up. For several seconds, the room stayed quiet. Then Hannah closed her laptop. "You should know something," she said. The tone of her voice made me tense. "What? I almost didn't tell you at the party." "Why?" "Because I knew he would say exactly that I was interfering. That you were trusting a woman you barely knew over the person who had been beside you half your life." I sat across from her. "Why did you tell me anyway?" She looked down at her hands. "Because the numbers were real. That's the accountant answer. She looked back at me. The neighbor answer is that I couldn't stand there and watch you sign away your life because you were too tired to see what was happening. My chest tightened. I wanted to say something light, something that would lower the temperature in the room. Instead, I asked, "Why did that matter so much to you?" Her lips parted, then closed. For 1 second, I thought she might answer. Then she stood and picked up our empty glasses. "You have a meeting tomorrow," she said. "You need sleep." It was the first time Hannah had avoided one of my questions. I thought about it all night. Thursday's meeting began badly and got worse. Nick arrived 20 minutes late without the full accounting files. He wore a gray polo shirt, and the expression he used with difficult clients, wounded patients, as if everyone else had forced him into an unreasonable situation. Malcolm sat beside me at the conference table. Hannah was not there. She had offered to come if Malcolm wanted her, but he said this first meeting needed to stay between the owners and council. For the first time since the party, I had to face Nick without her steady presence nearby. He dropped a folder on the table. "There," he said. "Everything you asked for." Malcolm opened it, turned 3 pages, and looked up. "No, it isn't." Nick crossed his arms. "That's what I have. Then we have a serious records problem." Nick looked at me. "You really want to do this?" I thought of 13-year-old Nick teaching me how to throw a curveball, 18-year-old Nick driving me home after I got sick at graduation, 27-year-old Nick standing beside me at my mother's funeral. Then I thought of the $1 sale agreement. "Yes," I said. His jaw tightened. Malcolm began asking about Birch Supply Consulting. Nick had an answer ready. Subcontracting support. Specialty sourcing. Temporary procurement. "Show us the work product," Malcolm said. "I don't keep every email forever. Show us one." Nick stared at him. Then came the credit line. Then the double-paid invoices. Then the resort charge. Nick explained each one until the explanations started contradicting each other. Finally, he shoved his chair back. This company would have died 2 years ago if I hadn't moved money around. Malcolm's voice stayed calm. "Moved it where?" "To keep us alive." "That is not an answer." Nick turned to me. Tell him how many times we were short. Tell him how many clients paid late. You were out there promising everyone custom work and perfect timelines while I was trying to keep cash moving. You opened debt I didn't know about. I did what I had to do. You paid a fake supplier tied to your sister." His face changed. Only slightly, but enough. I knew. There are moments when proof matters less than recognition. I saw the truth in the way his eyes flicked toward Malcolm, not me. "Why?" I asked. Nick looked down. Malcolm said, "Daniel, we should stop here." "No." I want him to answer. Nick's voice dropped. "It started with 20,000. For what? A property deal." I stared. He told the story in pieces. A friend had offered him a chance to invest in 2 short-term rental houses near the coast. Quick renovation, quick resale, easy profit. Nick used company money temporarily, certain he could replace it before anyone noticed. The deal collapsed. Then he borrowed more company money to cover the first loss, then more to cover credit cards. Then he created Birch Supply, so the transfers would look like business expenses. "Why the boat?" I asked. He rubbed his forehead. "I was trying to keep things normal at home. I almost stood up. You stole from 12 employees so your life could look normal. I was going to put it back. You tried to sell the company. That was how I was going to put it back." His voice cracked through the room. Silence followed. Malcolm slowly closed the folder. "How much?" he asked. Nick did not answer. "How much total?" I said. His eyes met mine. About 183,000. I felt the floor disappear beneath me. The number was larger than Hannah's early estimate, larger than our available credit, larger than anything I could personally replace. Malcolm immediately ended the meeting and began talking about forensic review, civil recovery, possible criminal exposure, insurance, and emergency financial controls. I heard the words but barely understood them. Then he gave me the worst piece. Our operating account hadn't had enough for less than half of Friday's payroll. I drove home without remembering most of the drive. Hannah was in her front yard trimming dead flowers when I pulled in. One look at my face, and she put the clippers down. How bad? 183,000? She went still. We can't make payroll. Daniel, I have 11 people expecting money tomorrow. 12, including you. I don't count. Her expression hardened. We've discussed that sentence. Not now. I walked toward my house. She followed me to the porch. What did Malcolm say? That there are options, insurance claims, recovery, maybe an emergency line if we can document receivables. Words. All of it takes time. So what are you going to do tonight? I don't know. Yes, you do. I turned too fast. Please stop doing that. Doing what? Acting like there's always one smart next step. There isn't. Sometimes everything is just broken. She flinched. I knew immediately I had gone too far, but anger was easier than fear. You found the problem, I continued. Great. Now I know exactly how dead my company is. Her face went quiet. That's not fair, she said. I know. Then don't say it. I looked away. She waited for an apology. I wanted to give her one. Instead, shame closed my throat. After a moment, she nodded once. When you're ready to talk to me instead of at me, you know where I live. She crossed the grass to her house. The distance was 15 feet. That evening it felt like 15 miles. I sat alone at my kitchen table until almost midnight. For 2 years, every crisis had made me work harder, faster, longer. I had mistaken motion for control. Now there was nothing I could fix with a drill or a spreadsheet. So I did something that felt worse than failure. I told the truth. The next morning I gathered my crew in our small warehouse before 7. 11 people stood around me in work boots and company shirts. Some had been with us since the beginning. I explained that financial misconduct by one owner had created a payroll shortage. I did not name every detail. I did not make promises I could not keep. I can pay 48% today, I said. The rest should be available within several days if the emergency financing clears. If anyone needs to leave, I understand. If anyone wants copies of the written plan, you'll have them. If you want to yell at me, you've earned that too. Nobody spoke at first. Then Luis, my lead carpenter, asked, Did you steal it? No. Did you know? No. He studied me. Then stop looking like you did. A few people shifted. I swallowed. By noon, Malcolm had helped arrange a receivables-backed bridge advance from a local lender. 2 longtime clients agreed to process scheduled milestone payments early after I personally explained the situation and showed them their projects were protected. I sold a trailer we rarely used. I suspended my own pay. By Monday afternoon, every employee had the rest of the money owed. The company was still wounded, but it was alive. That night I stood between my house and Hannah's with a paper bag in my hand for almost a full minute before knocking. She opened the door wearing sweatpants and an old college t-shirt. What's in the bag? She asked. Peach pie? Bribery? Apology. She considered that. Better be good pie. It cost $22. That doesn't answer the question. I laughed nervously. Hannah, I'm sorry. Her expression softened, but she did not rescue me from the silence. I was scared, I said. You were the person standing closest to me, so I made you carry it. That was wrong. Yes. I also blamed you for showing me something that was already happening. Yes. I'm not enjoying how efficient you are at accepting apologies. A small smile appeared. Come in. We ate pie at her kitchen counter. I told her about the crew meeting. She told me she was proud of me. I shook my head. I almost lost the company because I didn't pay attention. No. You almost lost it because someone exploited a division of responsibility and your trust. You'll build better controls. That's different from deciding trust itself was stupid. I looked at her for a long moment. Is that what you believe? I'm trying to. Because of Peter? Because of a lot of things. I nodded. Then I asked the question she had avoided before. Why did you care so much at the party? She put down her fork. This time she did not escape. Because I like you, Daniel. The room became very still. She continued before I could speak. I liked you before the bank statements, before Nick. I liked you when you fixed Mrs. Alvarez's porch rail for free and pretended you had leftover materials. I liked you when my smoke alarm started chirping at 2 in the morning and you showed up with a ladder looking half dead. I liked you when you argued with me about whether my hydrangeas were getting too much sun. They were. They were not. They absolutely were. She smiled, then grew serious again. I didn't tell you because you were still carrying the end of your engagement around like proof that closeness costs too much. And I had my own reasons to be careful. My heart was beating hard now, almost exactly as it had in the bathroom at the party. But the fear was different. I like you too, I said. Her eyes searched mine. Since when? I don't know. Maybe the coffee, maybe the porch, maybe before that. That is a terrible answer. I'm new at this. So am I. I moved closer, then stopped. The pause mattered. She closed the remaining distance and kissed me. It was brief, gentle, and so ordinary that it felt more important than anything dramatic could have. No locked door, no music swelling, just peach pie on the counter and the refrigerator humming behind us. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. We go slowly, she said. Very slowly. No turning me into the woman who saved you. I understood immediately. You warned me, I said. I made the choices after that. And no turning yourself into the man who needs to repay me. Can I still fix your porch leak? That is basic neighbor responsibility. I laughed. For the first time in weeks, the future did not look like a threat. It looked like work I was willing to do. The next 3 months were not a clean victory montage. They were paperwork, interviews, angry calls, revised bank permissions, and a forensic review that made me realize how many habits I needed to change. Nick resigned from the company under the terms Malcolm negotiated, while the financial claims moved forward. Some money was recovered through the sale of assets connected to the transfers. Insurance covered part of the documented loss. The rest became a problem we would solve over time instead of a hole we pretended did not exist. I also stopped running Mercer renovations, like trust was a substitute for structure. Every prepayment above a set amount required 2 approvals. Bank reconciliations went to an outside bookkeeper each month. My crew received clearer project budgets. I learned to read financial statements without waiting for someone else to translate them. It was uncomfortable at first. Then it became freeing. The biggest change was simpler. I stopped hiding bad news until it became an emergency. When a project fell behind, I called the client before they called me. When cash was tight, I reviewed it early. When I felt overwhelmed, I said it out loud. Hannah noticed. "You're becoming annoyingly functional," she told me one Sunday morning. We were painting the small room at the back of my house that had been half finished for almost 3 years. I had a good teacher. She pointed her roller at me. Careful. I know. You're not my rescuer. Correct. You're my judgmental neighbor. Also correct. By October, she was more than that, although we still kept the word neighbor because it made us laugh. We had our first real date at a tiny restaurant downtown where nobody knew anything about missing company money or fake vendors. Our second date was a Saturday farmer's market. Our third was supposed to be a movie, but we spent 2 hours sitting in my truck afterward talking about the parts of marriage that scared us. Neither of us wanted to rush toward promises just because we had once been hurt by broken ones. That became one of the best things about us. We learned each other without trying to own each other. The following summer, almost exactly 1 year after the night that started everything, the Hendersons hosted the neighborhood party again. The same string lights hung over the yard. Someone was grilling corn. Children ran through sprinklers. A cornhole board sat crooked near the fence. I stood beside Hannah with a cold lemonade in my hand when she nodded toward the back door. "Want to see something?" she asked. I stared at her. "Absolutely not." She laughed. "Come on. No bathrooms?" "Daniel, you traumatized me." She took my hand anyway and led me into the house. We stopped in the hallway outside that same small bathroom. The door was open this time. Hannah leaned against the frame and smiled. "A year ago, you looked like you were about to pass out. A year ago, you told me my best friend was stealing from me. I was trying to be memorable. You succeeded." Her smile faded into something softer. "Do you ever wish I hadn't told you?" I did not answer immediately. I thought about the friendship I lost, the money, the humiliation of standing in front of my employees and admitting I had failed to see what was happening inside my own company. Then I thought about everything that came after. The business was smaller now, but healthier. My crew trusted the numbers because I did. I slept most nights without waking up to calculate disasters. I had finished the back room in my house. I had taken my first full week off in 4 years. And Hannah's toothbrush had quietly appeared beside mine 3 weeks earlier, though she still insisted she had not officially moved in. "No," I said. "I wish I had been ready to hear it sooner." She reached for my hand. That bathroom did not save my life. Hannah did not save my life either. What changed my life was the truth she was brave enough to whisper, and the choice I finally made to face it. For years, I believed loyalty meant never questioning the people you loved. I believed strength meant carrying every problem privately. I believed asking for help was what you did after you failed. I was wrong about all three. Real loyalty can survive questions. Real strength tells the truth before the roof caves in. And help is not a debt when it comes from someone who respects your ability to choose what happens next. I squeezed Hannah's hand and looked into the room where everything had begun. "What?" she asked. "Nothing. That face is not nothing. You know my faces now?" She smiled. "Unfortunately." I kissed her forehead, and we walked back toward the party together. If you were in my place, what would have been harder for you? Discovering the betrayal, admitting you needed help, or trusting someone new after everything fell apart? Tell me in the comments. Sometimes the answer says more about where we are in life than we expect.